I thought he was going to say something, but he didn't.
Okay. Oh,
Did I
Sam.
step on you?
We're going to have a little bit of technical difficulties right now, folks, because I have a new setup and I'm trying to get, let's see if I can get this going on the big screen. No, big screen. Oh, how do I play this on the big screen? Sam, you gotta chill out for a second. All right. No, you're moving the camera, doggy. There we go. Big screen. All right. I think we've got it connected. So there I am.
Yeah.
Up on the big screen. And there's a few second delay. So let me get that puppy's toy here, wherever it went. Oh my goodness. Where did your toy go? Oh boy. I don't know where your toy went, Sam. And I've got a toy that I'm leaning back on and squeaking with. So, hello, Shaman. Oh, there goes the toy. I've got to fix this. Oh my goodness. Otherwise, this is just going to squeak all night. Oh, there we go. Okay. There's that. Oh my goodness. So, I am here with Mary Lou. I don't know if I want to turn the camera, but she's sitting here over on the couch, and we've got a few second delay, so it's very, very bizarre. Hello, Samantha P. My computer is over here, which is why I'm looking over here for the chat. And then I have my TV in front of me, which is a few seconds off, which is very bizarre. And we've got everything going. Yes, Shaman, Mary Lewis here. Hi, Shell, how you doing? And we're doing this all because this is my big, comfy chair, my recliner that my mother bought me. And it allows me to put my feet up because I threw up my back a couple of days ago. And so, yeah, Mary Lou is here. She's keeping the dogs company. And we're going to do our book club. I have the camera here in front of me. And yeah, it's going to be exciting. I eventually have an arm that's going to come that's going to sit underneath the recliner. And that way I can have the monitor and the camera right in front of me. But right now it's just on a tripod with some hair ties holding it on. And this is how we're going to do the book club. So, Taylor, hey, how you doing? Good to see you. So, yeah, everybody's in the house. And I put the link in. I will put the link in again in case anybody wants to come up. And that way I can sit and I can be comfortable and I can let my back rest. And just comfortably read, because I was in a live last night for I think like 2 hours, and it just, I had already thrown out my back, and so it made my back that much worse. And so now I have to sit in my big comfortable chair to make sure that I actually heal from all this pain. But hey, Floki's here. How you doing, Floki? Good to see you. So here we are, and we are on page 38 of the 12 Rules for Life, and we are getting into chaos and order. So I shall begin. Chaos and order are the two most fundamental elements of lived experience. the two most basic subdivisions of being itself, capital B, being. But they're not things or objects. They're not experienced as such. Things or objects are part of the objective world. They're inanimate. They're spiritless. They're dead. This is not true of chaos and order. Those are perceived, experienced, and understood to the degree that they are understood at all as personalities. And it is just as true of the perceptions, experience, and understanding of modern people as their ancient forebears. It's just that moderners don't notice. Oh, right on. Your book came in this weekend, Taylor? That's awesome. That's fantastic. So you get to follow along with us. All right. So order and chaos are not understood first objectively as things or objects and then personified. That would only be the case if we perceived objective reality first, then inferred intent and purpose. But that isn't how perception operates, despite our preconceptions. Perception of things as tools, for example, occurs before or in concert with perception of things as objects. We see what things mean just as fast or faster than we see what they are. Perception of things and as entities with personalities also occurs before perception of things as things. This is particularly true of the action of others, living others, but we also see the non-living objective world as animated with purpose and intent. This is because the operation of what psychologists have called, quote, the hyperactive agency detector, end quote, within us. We evolved over millennia with intensely social circumstances. This means that the most significant elements of our environment of origin were personalities, not things, objects, or situations. The personalities we have evolved to perceive have been around in predictable forms and in typical hierarchical configurations forever, for all intents and purposes. They have been male or female, for example, for 1 billion years. That's a long time. The division of life into its twin sexes occurred before the evolution of multicellular animals. It was in the still receptible 1/5 of that time that mammals who take extensive care of their young emerged. Bless you, Sam. Sam is just having a good old time over here. Yeah. You took Mary Lou's seat? Yeah. You want attention? Yeah, you want attention? That's what you want? But I'm reading. It's time for me to read. You know that. Okay. Yes, we're on page 39. So, hey, Justice, nice to see you. I've got a new setup here, so everything's a little weird. So thus the category of parent. Are you going to stop whining anytime soon? Yeah? Are you going to be a pill? Oh, okay. Mary Lou's going to pet you and you'll be fine. All right. They're so jealous. They do not understand this new setup. Okay, Free, come on up. Come on. There we go. Good girl. All right. So, the division of life into its twin sexes occurred before the evolution of multicellular animals. It is in this still receptacle 1/5 of that time that mammals, who take extensive care of their young, emerged. Thus, the category of parent and or child has been around for 200 million years. That's longer than birds have existed. That's longer than flowers have grown. It's not 1 billion years, but it's still a very long time. It's plenty long enough for male and female and parent and child to serve as vital and fundamental parts of the environment to which we have adapted. This means that male and female and parent and child are categories for us, natural categories, deeply embedded in our perceptual, emotional, and motivational structures. That's pretty neat. So, all right. Our brains are deeply social. Other creatures, particularly other humans, were crucially important to us as we lived, mated, and evolved. These creatures were literally our natural habitat, our environment. From a Darwinian perspective, nature, reality itself, the environment itself, is what selects. And what selects is in italics, so it's important. It is not mere inert matter. Reality is whatever we contend with when we are striving to survive and reproduce. A lot of other beings, their opinions of us, and their communities. And that's that. We're on to page 40 now. Over the millennia, as our brains' capacity increased and we developed curiosity to spare, we became increasingly aware of and curious about the nature of our world, what we eventually conceptualized as the objective world, the outside personalities of family and troop. And outside is not merely unexplored physical territory. Outside is outside of what we currently understand. And understanding is dealing with and coping with, not merely representing objectivity. But our brains have been long concentrating on other people. Thus, it appears that we first began to perceive the unknown, the chaotic, non-human world with the innate categories of our social brain. And even this is a misstatement. When we first began to perceive the unknown, chaotic, non-animal world, we used categories that had originally evolved to represent the pre-human animal social world. Our minds are far older than mere humanity. Our categories are far older than our species. Our most basic category, as old in some sense as the sexual act itself, appears to be that of sex, male and female. We appear to have taken that primordial knowledge of structured, creative opposition and begun to interpret everything else through that lens. So I'm going to go over to the chat here for a second. Different Gnome says, I keep hearing the whining and thinking it's one of my machine. The whine sounds like an old drill slipping. Yeah, no, that's Sam. He's sitting over there on the couch and he's whining because he's not getting any attention. No, you're not getting attention right now. Yeah. And Free's here in my lap. And she's barely getting any attention. But yeah, it's this new setup. The dogs will get used to it eventually. So Samantha P says, gonna have to mostly listen on my way home from work. Can only text at the lights. No problem, Samantha. You stay and drive safe. So we've got a chorus of doggy whines. What is this? What is it? You don't understand, do you? This is all new to you. This is an all new setup. Yeah, you're all freaked out. They want to go on a W. Yeah, but it's too late for a W. It's already 5. It's past 5. You guys have got to wait. Yeah, you've got to wait. So, okay, we are back on page 40. Oh, hush, hush, hush. So, order, the known, appears symbolically associated with masculinity as illustrated in the aforementioned yang of the Taoist yin-yang symbol. This is perhaps because the primary hierarchical structure of human society is masculine, as it is for most animals, including the chimpanzees, who are our closest genetic and arguably behavioral match. This is because men are, and throughout history have been, the builders of towns and cities, the engineers, the stonemasons, the bricklayers, and lumberjacks, the operators of heavy machinery. They are also the protectors. If you go back to ancient Egypt, the men inherited men inherited the land and women inherited the money. And that's because the men have the strength to go to war so they can protect the territory. But women are better with small little details and things like that. Accounting, we're secretaries. That's the kind of stuff that women take care of. And so women inherited the money in ancient Egyptian society. That's why. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Thank you for putting up with me tonight. I'm so glad you're putting up with me and the dogs. They are driving me crazy, but we will get used to this eventually. So yeah, men protect the land. They're able to be territorial, and women keep track of children. They keep track of finances. They keep track of little details and stuff like that. Stop it. And that's why there's this division of men being the builders of society and women being the nurturers of society. So let's get back into it. All right. Order is God the Father, the eternal judge, ledger keeper, and dispenser of rewards and punishments. Just wait till your father gets home. Everybody's heard that one. It is the political culture, the corporate environment, and the system. It's the they, and you know what they say. It's credit cards, classrooms, supermarket checkout lineups, turn taking, traffic lights, and the familiar routes of daily commutes. Order, when pushed too far, when imbalanced, can also manifest itself destructively and terribly. It does so as the forced migration, the concentration camp, and the soul-devouring uniformity of the goose step. Chaos, the unknown, is symbolically associated with the feminine. This is partly because all things we have come to know were born originally of the unknown, just as all beings we encounter were born of mothers. Chaos is matter. Origin, M-A-T-E-R, not M-A-T-T-E-R, M-A-T-E-R, as in the matra from the Latin, meaning mother. Origin, source, mother, materia, the substance from which all things are made. It is also what matters, or what is the matter, the very subject matter of thought and communication. In its positive guise, chaos is possibly itself the source of ideas, the mysterious realm of gestation of birth. As a negative force, it is impenetrable darkness of a cave and the accident by the side of the road. It is the mother grizzly, all compassion to her cubs, who marks you as the potential predator and tears you to pieces. Everybody knows the danger of a mama bear. Chaos, the eternal feminine, is also the crushing force of sexual selection. Women are choosy maters, unlike female chimps, their closest animal counterparts. Most men do not meet the female human standards. It is for this reason that women on the dating sites rate 85% of men as below average attractiveness. It is for this reason that we have twice as many female ancestors as we have male ancestors. Imagine that all the women who have ever lived have averaged one child. Now imagine that half of the men who have ever lived have fathered 2 children, if they have had any, while the other half have fathered none. It is the women as nature, capital W, capital N, who looks at half of all the men and says, nope. For the men, that's a direct encounter with chaos, and it occurs with devastating force every time they are turned down for a date. Human female choosiness is also why we are very different from the common ancestor we shared with our chimpanzee cousins, while the latter are very much the same. Women's proclivity to say no, more than any other force, has shaped our evolution into the creative, industrious, upright, large-brained, competitive, aggressive, domineering creatures that we are. It is the nature of women who says, well, bucko, you're good enough for a friend, but my experience of you so far has been not indicated the suitability of your genetic material for the continued propagation. So, and I can't see because my contacts are going bad. So, all right, good. All right, everybody's in the chat is all right. So I'm going to continue with this. The most profound religious symbols rely on their power in large part on this underlying fundamentally bipartisan conceptual subdivision. The Star of David, for example, is the downward pointing triangle of femininity and the upward pointing triangle of the male. It is for the same for the yoni and lingam of Hinduism, which, covered with snakes, are ancient adversaries and provocateurs. The Shiva Linga is depicted with snake deities called the Nagas. The ancient Egyptians represented Osiris, god of the state, and Isis, goddess of the underworld, as twin cobras with their tails knotted together. The same symbol was used in China to portray Fuxi and Nuwa, the creators of humanity and writing. The representation in Christianity are less abstract, more like personalities, but the familiar Western images of the Virgin Mary with the Christ child and the Pieta both express the female-male duality unit, as does the traditional insistence on the androgyny of Christ. It should be noted, finally, that the structure of the brain itself, as gross morphology level, appears to reflect this duality. This, to me, indicates the fundamental, beyond the metaphorical reality of this symbolically feminine and masculine divide, since the brain is divided by definition to reality itself. That is, reality conceptualized in this quasi-Darwinian manner. Elkonin Goldberg, a student of the great Russian neurophysiologist and Alexander Luria, has proposed lucidly and directly that the very hemispheric structure of the cortex reflects the fundamental division between novelty, the unknown or chaos. So novelty, the unknown or chaos, or maybe I have it on the wrong side, the unknown, and routinization, the known order. He doesn't make reference to the symbols representing the structure of the world in reference to this theory, but that's all the better. An idea is more credible when it emerges as consequence of investigation into different realms. And I just lost this. Oh, I got a sign-in error. Your account couldn't be accessed. I'm signed out. Sign in. Sign in. Why is Thank you. Do that one. Oh, my goodness. Okay, now I got to get my iPad working again. Excuse me one moment for technical difficulties. And I think it's because my iPad decided to shut down. All right, here we go. Play. Live. All playing on the big screen. Yeah, that's good. It's not playing on the big screen. Let's go down here. Live. All right. Are we playing? There we go. Hey, Logic is in the house. Awesome. So here we are. We're back live. Everything's running again. I've got it on my big screen. I've got my camera right here. I've got my computer right here. Logic Rex is in the house. Mary Lou is in the house. So we've got a footnote here. It is of great interest in this regard that the 5-part taijutsu, referred to in Chapter 1 as the source of the simpler yin-yang symbol, represses the origin of the cosmos as first originating in the undifferentiated absolute, then dividing into the yin and yang, chaos and order, feminine and masculine, and then into the 5 agents, wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, then simply put, 10,000 things. The Star of David, chaos/order, feminine/masculine, gives rise in the same way to the 4 basic elements, fire, air, earth, and water, out of which everything else is built. A similar hexagram is used by the Hindus. The downward triangle symbolizes Shakti, the feminine, the upward triangle, Shiva, the masculine. The 2 components are known as Om and Hrim in Sanskrit, remarkable examples of conceptual parallelism. And what he means is that because it's a human experience, because it's something that we all share, it doesn't matter what culture it comes from. We all make these same divisions into male and female, because that's older than culture itself. So, all right, I got a quick text over here that I'm going to check on. Logic says, did you just go live? Yeah, I went live about 20 minutes ago, and no problem on you being busy. I understand you're working, and that's much more important than my lives is make that money, boy. You know, you get that business going. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the invite link again if you want to come in, or anybody who wants to come in, actually. Let's see, paste. There we go. So Samantha B says, my book is an audiobook. Wish I could follow along. Yeah, unfortunately, with my commentary and things like that, things are going to get broken up into little pieces, and it's going to be weird. So audiobook is a little difficult to follow along. But for anybody who's got the physical book, we are on page 42. So, all right. And we're at the bottom of page 42. So we already know all of this, but we don't know we know it. But we immediately comprehend it when it's articulated in a manner such as this. Everyone understands order and chaos, the world and the underworld, when it's explained using these terms. We all have the palpable sense of the chaos lurking underneath everything familiar. That's why we understand the strange, surreal stories of Pinocchio and Sleeping Beauty and the Lion King and the Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast, with their eternal landscapes of known and unknown, world and underworld. We've all been both places many times, sometimes by happenstance, sometimes by choice. Many things begin to fall into place when you begin to consciously understand the world in this manner. It's as if the knowledge of your body and soul falls into alignment with the knowledge of your intellect. And there's more. Such knowledge is perspective as well as descriptive. This is the kind of knowing what that helps you know how. This is the kind of is from which you can drive an ought. The Taoist juxtaposition of yin and yang, for example, doesn't simply portray the chaos and order as fundamental elements of being with a capital B. It also tells you how to act. The way, capital W, way, the Taoist path of life, is represented by or exists on the border between the two serpents. The way is the path of proper being, capital B being. It's the same way referred to by Christ in John 4:16. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The same idea is expressed in Matthew 7:14. Because straight is the gate, and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few that be that find it. We eternally inhabit order, surrounded by chaos. We eternally occupy the known territory, surrounded by the unknown. We experience meaningful engagement when we mediate appropriately between them. We are adapted in the deepest Darwinian sense, not to the world of objects, but to the world of meta-realities of order and chaos, yin and yang. Chaos and order make up the eternal, transcendent environment of the living. To straddle that fundamental duality is to be balanced, to have one foot firmly placed in order and security, and the other in chaos, possibility, growth, and adventure. When life suddenly reveals itself as intense, gripping, and meaningful, when time passes and you're so engrossed in what you're doing that you don't notice, it is there and then that you are located precisely on the border between order and chaos. So Samantha P says, I have an Om tattoo on the back of my neck. I had it done to make it appear like it's a hernia. That's awesome. I really like that. Yeah, that's definitely the line between order and chaos is the line between, health and crisis. So, all right, we are on page 44 now. The subjective meaning that we encounter there is the reaction of our deepest being, our neurologically and evolutionarily grounded instinctive self, indicating that we are ensuring the stability, but also the expansion of the habitable, productive territory of space that is personal, social, and natural. It is the right place to be in every sense. You are there when and where it matters. That's what music is telling you too when you're listening. Even more perhaps when you're dancing, when its harmoniously layered patterns of predictability and unpredictability make meaning itself well up from the most profound depths of your being. Chaos and order are fundamentally elements because every lived situation, even every conceivably lived situation, is made up of both. No matter where we are, there are some sense of things we can identify, make use of, and predict, and some things we neither know nor understand. No matter who we are, Kalahari Desert, dweller of Wall Street, banker, some things are under our control and some are not. That's why both can understand the same stories and dwell within the same confines of the same eternal truths. Finally, the fundamental reality of chaos and order is true for everything alive, not only us. Living things are always to be found in places where they can master, surrounded by things and situations that make them vulnerable. Order is not enough. You can't just be stable and secure and unchanging, because there are still vital and important new things to be learned. Nonetheless, chaos can be too much. You can't long tolerate being swamped and overwhelmed beyond your capacity to cope while you are learning what you still need to know. Thus, you need to place one foot in what you have mastered and understood, and the other in what you are currently exploring and mastering. Then you have positioned yourself where the terror of existence is under control and you are secure, but where you are also alert and engaged. That is where there is something new to master and some way that you can be improved. That is where meaning is to be found. Isn't it great?
Yeah.
So now we are on to the Garden of Eden. Remember, as discussed earlier, that the Genesis stories were amalgamated from several sources. After the newer priestly story, Genesis 1, recounting the emergence of order from chaos, comes the second, even more ancient Yahwist part, beginning essentially with Genesis 2. The Yahwist account, which uses the name YHWH, or Yahweh, to represent God, contains the story of Adam and Eve, along with a much fuller explanation of the events of the sixth day alluded to in the previous priestly story. The continuity between the stories appears to be the result of careful editing by the person or persons known singly to biblical scholars as the redactor, who wove the stories together. This may have occurred when the peoples of two traditions united for one reason or another, and the subsequent illogic of their melded stories, growing together over time in an ungainly fashion, bothered someone conscious, courageous, and obsessed with coherence. So there's the idea that the Genesis story, because it has two different stories of creation in it, that there was this priestly version that we see as Genesis 1, but that's actually the newer story. And the older story is the Yahwist story in Genesis 2. And it may be that those were Judah and Israel, because they used to be two different states. And when they formed together, they couldn't decide on which creation story was supposed to be the creation story. So they just decided to stick both of them in. So, according to the Yahwist creation story, God the first created a bounded space known as Eden, which in Aramaic, Jesus' perative language, means a well-watered place, or paradise, paradisia in the old Iranian, or Avestan, which means walled or protected enclosure or garden. God placed Adam in there along with all manner of fruit-bearing trees, two of which were marked out. One of these was the tree of life. The other was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God then told Adam to have his fill of fruit as he wished, but added that the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil was forbidden. After that, he created Eve as a partner for Adam. Or in another interpretation, He split the original androgynous individual into two parts, male and female. According to this line of thinking, Christ, the second Adam, is also part of the original man before the sexual subdivision. This symbolic meaning of this should be clear to those who have followed the argument thus far. I don't know how clear it is. Adam and Eve don't seem very conscious at the beginning when they are first placed in paradise, and they were certainly not self-conscious, as the story insists. The original parents were naked, but not ashamed. Such phrasing implies first that it is perfectly natural and normal for people to be ashamed of their nakedness. Otherwise, nothing would have to be said about its absence. And second, that there was something amiss, for better or for worse, with our first parents. Now, isn't that interesting? Don't we all have something that we can say against our parents that they've gotten wrong? You know, they don't realize they're naked, but we, their children, we can see it. So I'm going to go over to the chat here and try and get my contacts to work. Oh my goodness.
I think that better get going.
Okay. So Shaman says chaos and order are not so evenly balanced in the universe. It's like chess. Chaos always wins, or order always wins. There is no game. Even if there is always a stalemate, there still is no game. Yeah. And Samantha says, I just went by a car that was pulled over, and there are literally 7 police officers at this one traffic stop. Oh, that's crazy. And Taylor asks what page we are on. We are now on page 46. And if you will excuse me, I'm going to see Mary Lou out, so we're going to have a short interlude. So I'm going to pause this real quick, and I will see you all in a little bit. All right, I have to show you all this. So Sam does not want Mary Lou to leave at all. So Sam is lying on Mary Lou's lap, and she has tried to get up 3 times now. Come on, Sam, let her up. Yeah, you gonna let her up? Oh, that's a good boy. That's a good boy. Yeah. And of course, we have Free on the ground here. Let me get rid of this comment from Taylor. So Free now wants attention too. So I will be right back. I'm going to go let Mary Lou out, and I will see you guys in a second. So go ahead, grab your drinks, grab your bathroom breaks, and yeah, we'll be back in a moment. Bye. Oh, thank you so much for putting up with that. Sorry about that. I figured she wouldn't last the whole 2 hours going through. So, but that's okay. So it's Mary Lou, and we love Mary Lou. So, let me see. So, Taylor says, "Oh, that's so adorable." Yeah, puppy loves Mary Lou. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Samantha says, "I'm the same way with my animals. I never want to make them uncomfortable so I could move." Yep. There goes number 8 on its way to the stop. Oh my gosh. I hope whoever's in that car situation is okay. So, yeah, Taylor, exactly. I'm wondering the same thing. I wonder what's going on that they have that many cops on the scene. So, yeah, yeah. So, Godspeed to them, whoever they are, and blessings to them. So, all right. And kick up my feet, figure out what page we are again. Okay, here we are. We are on page 46. I'm going to stop and take a brief tobacco break. Oh, my jaw just popped. So, I'm glad that we're doing the book at the same time as the biblical series, because we can see the parallels between the book and the biblical series as far as what he's talking about in Genesis and what he's talking about as far as order and chaos, the walled garden, that kind of thing. So, so Samantha P says, "Yes, home sweet home. Good. Glad you're home. Wasn't an accident, was a stop." Oh, okay. So yeah, I agree. More than likely drugs. Oh, that's such a shame. That's such a shame. So I won't speak any more on it. I could get on my political soapbox, and let me point the camera down just a little bit because you guys are getting my bookshelf mainly, even though I do have a lovely kerosene lamp up there. There we go. All right. And so, all right, we're back on page 46. Let's see. Oh, wait, no, I'm confused now. I'm going to go back to page 45. Okay, yeah, ashamed of their nakedness. Otherwise, there wouldn't be much to be said about its absence. And second, that there was something amiss. Hey, for better or for worse with our first parents. All right, you want to come up? Come on up. Come on up. Come on. All right, if you don't want to come up, I'm just going to keep reading. Although there are exceptions, the only people around now who would be unashamed if suddenly dropped naked into a public place, excepting the odd exhibitionist, are those younger than 3 years of age. In fact, a common nightmare involves the sudden appearance of the dreamer naked on a stage in front of a packed house. Now, I'm with him on this. I've had dreams where I've been naked and it's embarrassing. I've had dreams where like I'm dressed from the top down, I'm wearing a shirt, but I'm not wearing any pants. And I'm running around, like different places on a school campus and I don't have any pants on. And it's mortifying. It's absolutely mortifying. And yeah, usually only children are that unabashed about their nakedness. So Shaman says, "Looks like we have ourselves here a reader," from Bill Hicks. I love Bill Hicks. He's awesome. Doggies, you're just going to have to wait now. So this is what I do for you all. So I put up with... No, No, I'm not going to give you food right now. I have an audience. I owe an obligation to read this book. So, all right, let's get back into it. In the 3rd chapter of Genesis, a serpent appears, first apparently in legged form. That's weird. I never noticed that. God only knows why he allowed or placed such a creature in the gardens. I have long puzzled over the meaning of this. It seems to be a reflection of, in part, of the order-chaos dichotomy characterized of all experience, with paradise serving as habitable order and the serpent playing the role of chaos. The serpent in Eden, therefore, means the same thing as the black dot in the yin side of the Taoist yin-yang symbol of totality. That is, the possibility of the unknown and revolutionary suddenly manifesting itself where everything appears calm. And isn't that the truth? I mean, it's, the fly in the ointment sort of thing. That's what he's talking about here. That, everything can seem serene and calm and perfect, but there's that one little speck that just disrupts the whole thing. So, hey, Survival is in the house and Nana's in the house too. Awesome. Glad to have you guys here. All right. So, it just does not appear possible, even for God himself, to make a bounded space completely protected from the outside, not in the real world with its necessary limitations, surrounded by the transcendent. The outside chaos always sneaks into the inside, because nothing can be completely walled off from the rest of reality. So the ultimate in safe spaces is inevitably harbors a snake. There were forever genuine quotidian reptilian snakes in the grass and in the trees of our original African paradise. Even had all these had been banished, however, in some inconceivable manner by some primordial Saint George, as in drove the snakes from Ireland, snakes would have still remained in the form of our primordial human rivals, at least when they were acting like enemies from our limited in-group, kin-bonded perspectives. There was, after all, no shortage of conflict and warfare among our ancestors, tribal or otherwise. And even if we had defeated all the snakes that beset us from without, reptilian and human-like, we would still have not been safe, nor are we now. We have seen the enemy after all, and he is us. The snake inhabits each of our souls. This is the reason, as far as I can tell, for the strange Christian insistence made most explicit by John Milton, that the snake of the Garden of Eden was also Satan, the spirit of evil itself. Now, Satan, if you go back to the Hebrew, means the accuser. So, it is in that act of accusing, like in the story of Job, you have the Satan or Satan. And this imagery gets muddled, going back to the snake of the Garden of Eden. And Satan is just the accuser. It's the accuser angel in the story of Job. So we all have that accuser nature in our being. We all have that snake in our being. And that accuser nature can be evil itself. So the importance of this symbolic identification, its staggering brilliance, can hardly be overstated. It is through such millennia-long exercise of the imagination that the idea of extracted moral concepts themselves, with all they entail, developed. Work beyond comprehension was invested into the idea of good and evil and its surrounding dreamlike metaphor. This is in italics. The worst of all possible snakes is the eternal human proclivity for evil. The worst of all possible snakes is psychological, spiritual, personal, internal. No walls, however tall, will keep that out. I'll repeat that. No walls, however tall, will keep that out. Even if the fortress were thick enough in principle to keep everything bad whatsoever outside, it would immediately appear again within. As the great Russian writer Alexander Solzhenitsyn insisted, the line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. There is simply no way to wall off some isolated portion of the greater surrounding reality and to make everything permanently predictable and safe within. Some of what has been, no matter how carefully excluded, will always sneak back in. A serpent, metaphorically speaking, will inevitably appear. Even as the most assiduous of parents cannot fully protect their children, even if they lock them in the basement, safe away from drugs, alcohol, and internet porn. In that extreme case, the too cautious, too caring parent merely substitutes himself or herself for the terrible problems of life. This is the great Freudian Oedipal nightmare. It is far better to render being in your care competent than to protect them. And even if it were possible to permanently banish everything threatening, everything dangerous, and therefore everything challenging and interesting, that would mean only that another danger would emerge, that of permanent human infantilism and absolute uselessness. How could the nature of man ever reach its full potential without challenge or danger? How dull and contemptible would we become if there was no longer reason to pay attention? Maybe God thought his new creation would be able to handle the serpent and considered its presence the lesser of two evils. Question for parents. Do you want to make your children safe or strong? And we are on page 48 now. I'm going to go back to chat real quick. All right. Tangled snake. That's the survival. The snakes like Mara, says Shaman. So, all right. We are on page 48 now. And we've got another hour to go. Isn't this wonderful? In any case, there's a serpent in the garden, and he's a subtle beast, according to the ancient story. Difficult to see, vaporous, cunning, deceitful, and treacherous. It therefore comes as no surprise when he decides to play a trick on Eve. Why Eve instead of Adam? It could just be chance. It was 50-50 for Eve, statistically speaking, and those are pretty high odds. But I have learned that these old stories contain nothing superfluous. Anything accidental, anything that does not serve the plot, has long been forgotten in the telling. As the Russian playwright Anton Chekhov advised, if there is a rifle hanging on the wall in Act 1, it must be fired in the next act. Otherwise, it has no business being there. Perhaps primordial Eve had more reason to attend to the serpents than Adam. Maybe they were more likely, for example, to prey on her tree-dwelling infants. Perhaps it is for this reason that Eve's daughters are more protective, self-conscious, fearful, and nervous to this day, even and especially in the most egalitarian of modern human societies. Why did the serpent choose Eve? Or was it that Eve chose the serpent? And because women tune in to those little things that have gone wrong. If a man gets a scratch on his arm, he goes, I got a scratch on my arm. No big deal. If a woman gets a scratch on her arm, she goes, oh, I better clean that and put a Band-Aid on it. Men are like, I don't need a Band-Aid. It'll be fine. Women are tuned in to those little disruptions. And so maybe it was for that reason that the snake noticed Eve, or on the flip side, that Eve noticed the snake. So, in any case, the serpent tells Eve that if she eats the forbidden fruit, she won't die. Instead, her eyes will be opened. She will become like God, knowing good from evil. Of course, the serpent doesn't let her know that she will be like God in only that one way. But he is a serpent after all. Being human and wanting to know more, Eve decides to eat the fruit. Poof! She wakes up. She's conscious and perhaps self-conscious for the first time. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to grab Red Bull. That's my alarm going off telling me that I have a Red Bull in the fridge. Oh. And isn't it typical? Isn't it typical? I mean, when we grow up as little kids, it's women that first become self-conscious of their own sexuality. You know, I remember, what was it? 4th grade, 3rd grade, that women started talking about our bodies and our sexual development and what periods were and all this stuff. And if you weren't in the group, you didn't get to be a part of these discussions and things like that. And men, you know, all the boys, they were just playing kickball. They didn't care, you know. I mean, you know, certainly they had urges and desires. That kind of stuff starts at age 11. But as far as being self-conscious, that our bodies are going through changes, that happens to women first, not to men. And even our laws reflect that. A lot of the laws, you know, nationwide recognize that women mature faster than men and are able to take more responsible decisions and see consequences for their actions earlier than men can. And, you know, this stuff is age old. It's absolutely fascinating. So Samantha P says, exactly. I had a younger cousin that got her period at 8 years old. Yeah. Women grow up sooner than men. So we have to take these things into account sooner than men. Our eyes are open before men's eyes are opened. Samantha P says, not to mention that we see women pregnant with babies even younger. By 3 or 4 kids can see a pregnant woman and recognize there's a baby in there. exactly. I mean, I was less than 5 years old. The old egg pantyhose that used to come in those little egg-shaped things, and you could break them apart. And if you had two of them, you had, two sets of evenly shaped boobies, and you would put them under your shirt because you knew, looking at your mother, that eventually you would become that and you would change into that. Whereas boys' bodies don't change as dramatically as women's bodies. You get hair in strange places and you get muscle where you didn't have muscle before, but it's not like getting hips. It's not like getting breasts and things like that. So women are much more attuned to these changes. So I can understand why in these old stories that have had, all the unnecessary bits stripped away, that it was, women who woke up first. That makes total sense to me. Not saying that that's, better or worse. It's just a natural consequence of our own personal evolution and, our evolution as a species as well. So Survival says, I thought my alarm was my washing machine. Now I'm doing laundry. Thanks, Pam. You're very welcome, Survival. I'm glad I could get you on those chores. I'm sure that Mrs. Survival is very happy with that. And he also says the snake bit Eve because her hair looked nice. I can see that happening. All right. So I will get back to our stories here. Perhaps primordial Eve had more reason to attend to serpents than Adam. That's a bad pun. Yeah, Adam's serpent between his legs. Yeah. Maybe they were more likely, for example, to prey on tree-dwelling infants. Perhaps it is for this reason Eve's daughters are more protective, self-conscious, fearful, and nervous to this day, even especially in the most egalitarian of modern human societies. In any case, the serpent tells Eve that if she eats the forbidden fruit, she won't die. Instead, her eyes will be open. She will become like God, knowing good from evil. Of course, the serpent doesn't let her know that she will be like God only in that one way. But he is a serpent after all. Being human and wanting to know more, Eve decides to eat the fruit. Poof! She wakes up. She's conscious, perhaps self-conscious for the very first time. Now, no clear-seeing, conscious woman is going to tolerate an unawakened man. So Eve immediately shares the fruit with Adam. That makes him self-conscious. Little has changed. Women have been making men self-conscious since the beginning of time. They do this primarily by rejecting them, but they also do it by shaming them if men do not take responsibility. Since women bear the primary burden of reproduction, it's no wonder. It's very hard to see how it could be otherwise. But the capacity of women to shame men and render them self-conscious is still a primal force of nature. Now, this is something that guys are going to have to explain to me because, as a woman, I do not understand this shaming force of women. I mean, we're inherently self-conscious as women. We're checking ourselves out. We're checking ourselves out compared to other women all the time. We're seeing what compliments we're getting, what sort of ridicule we're getting. We're just constantly worried and self-conscious. And, for women to make men self-conscious, I mean, I understand, it's brutal. It's brutal, but I don't quite understand this bit about the capacity of women to shame men and render them self-conscious is still a primal force of nature. So, Shaman says, yes, makes total sense. Young women tune into the metamorphosis way before males. Yeah. And that's partially because we change more than men. Survival says, I'm an idiot, lol. Taylor says in response, that's why we love you. So, Survival says, Pam, eyebrows are on fleek though. Oh, thank you. I have a special brush that I use to make them super fleek. So I'm talking about being self-conscious, right? That's awesome. But yeah, it's women are so in tune with their with other eyes staring at them all the time that I often wonder what it's like from the other side. I'm used to being a female and being stared at and being judged critically and being found wanting and all that other stuff, that it's a normal part of the game to me. I'm still dealing with my teeth and I can see them on the big screen up there and I'm like, oh my gosh, woman, you've got a giant gap in your smile. What are you doing going up on the big screen with a giant gap in your smile? No, you should go and hide in a corner somewhere and not let anyone see you until you're perfect. But on the other hand, my reasonable mind goes, no, my own appearance is nothing compared to the camaraderie that I have with you guys. And I would rather appear broken and limping and wounded to be able to have this great family that I have online. And I know that you guys love me regardless of this giant gap that I have in my teeth and whatnot. But on the other end, it's like, how would I respond if I'm a guy? What would be different? Would I be like, yeah, I got a gap in my teeth, so what? Plenty of guys got gaps in their teeth. I'm just going to go online and I'm going to love y'all because y'all my family. I don't know. I don't know what difference it would make at all. And I'm not mocking anybody in doing that. I'm just, it's one of those things where it's like the difference. Survival says, Pam's hair is oppressing me. Oh my gosh. And all I did was put it in a braid last night because it was annoying the F out of me because I didn't want it touching my face anymore. I was just like, no, put it up, put it back. And it came out as this later. So, yeah. But yeah, and, men dealing with balding, and that whole thing, women, we get this lustrous hair. And I had a friend who went, female to male. And the first thing that happened was male pattern balding. Nobody warned him about that. So now if he ever wants to go back the other direction, if he ever wants to revert back to female, he's screwed because he's lost all of his hair. Bless his heart, So yeah. Humble Mantis. Oh, good to see you, darling. I never noticed. I notice, and that's the thing. It's self-consciousness. It's not other consciousness. It's self-consciousness. And so, and that's what hits women harder than men is that we are so better at being self-conscious than men are. Women's value is in our appearance and not so much our doing. men's value was in their doing and not so much their appearance. So it's guys who have accomplished less don't get picked by women, and they go MGTOW. And women who aren't pretty enough say, well, I can still put my heels up and I can get a man. So what's the problem? You got me all in my soapbox. I got to get off. So the gap's not hair. Survival has hair envy. Well, and the thing is that I grew up with a dad who had, a widow's peak and a bald spot. And so I'm actually attracted to men with less hair. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, full head of hair. Yeah, that's nice and all, but don't you appear a bit young? I want somebody who's more of a Sean Connery type, that kind of thing going on. So, Shell says you should get a wig, Survival. That's a big one. Yes, Humble Manta says nobody warned me that you don't stop getting zits after being a teenager. Oh my gosh, to this day, I still get zits. It drives me nuts. I mean, it's not as bad as when I was a teenager, but it's like, that's how I know my period's coming on. It's, my skin breaks out and it's painful and it's ugly and it's, oh my gosh. So Survival says, I have a lot of costume wigs. I should totally do it. Yes, Survival. I want to see you in a wig. Let's get you and Rex next to each other and show off your best wigs. We'll have a fashion show. That would be awesome. Samantha says, yeah, mine never went away either. The high testosterone makes me have extra breakouts than average. Samantha says, love you, Pam. Love you, fam. Oh, bless you. Yes, I love all of you. And hopefully my new desk will be coming in soon. So it'll have this camera and monitor thing all figured out. So it looks like I'm looking at you still while I'm doing all this. So, but it's been a crazy day. My back was killing me bad enough that I couldn't do the desk anymore. I couldn't do, and I couldn't stand anymore either. Because I used to stand at this window right here and have my iPad in the window and this lamp I would use for lighting. And that's how I would light my shows and everything like that. And it's gotten to the point where I don't know if it's the weather. I don't know if it's spring or whatever. We've got kind of an early spring going on here in Colorado. My feet hurt, my back hurt, everything else. So I just need to, if I'm going to dedicate this 2 hours to you all, which I want to do, I want to keep that promise. I got to sit in my most comfy chair. So, yeah. Survival says, I'm going to do it when mine are like ball caps with hair. Okay. Yeah. And we got to do it. We got to do, a best hair sort of, I don't know, beauty pageant, whatever, guys and girls will all go in there. So, Survival says, I have a Kenny Powers hat with hair. That's awesome. Shell asks, do you look like Wayne's World? And she says that she loves my chair. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much I love this chair. I have fallen asleep in this chair more times than I can count. This is, and I have to thank my mother for this chair. This is a wonderful chair. I love this chair. So this is my big fluffy comfy chair. And hopefully we will have it all set up for my gimpy self. And yeah, we'll get it done, fam. We'll get it done. So, but anyway, I'm going to take a brief smoke break. yeah, I feel much more comfy. I feel much more comfy. You know, my posture isn't the best sitting in this chair, but at the same time, who gives a crap as long as I can, you know, like withstand the 2 hours of being here and not be sitting there going, oh my gosh, I hurt, but I still need to do this. I hurt, but I still need to do this. And so it was last night, and it was just, oh, it was just terrible. It's just terrible. And finally, I gave up. I was like, I gotta bail. My back's killing me. You know, I gotta go. So, and I still have my webpage to make. I've started work on the webpage for the nonprofit organization, and that's going great. So, yeah, we're moving along. We're moving along. All right. So, Taylor, right? It's a damn chore. Oh my gosh, Taylor, too. Yep, the Pam fam. Yep, especially in the summer. Yep. Name it Cherry. The chair is named Cherry. All right. But it's blue. It's got to be like blueberry. It's a blueberry cherry or something like that. I love you guys. You guys are fantastic. Oh, you make my weekend. You really do. You really do. All right. So, shall we get back in this? All right. Where the hell was I? Treating infants. Now, no clear-seeing, conscious woman is going to tolerate an unawakened man. There we go. So Eve immediately shares the fruit with Adam. That makes him self-conscious. All right. But the capacity of women to shame men and render them self-conscious is still a primal force of nature. Now, you may ask, what in the world has snakes got to do with vision? Well, first, it's clearly important to see them because they might prey on you, particularly when you're little and live in trees like our arboreal ancestors. Dr. Lynn Isabel, professor of anthropology and animal behavioral at the University of California, has suggested that the stunningly acute vision almost uniquely possessed by human beings, although birds do pretty damn good, was an adaptation forced on us tens of millions of years ago by the necessity of detecting and avoiding the terrible danger of snakes with whom our ancestors co-evolved. This is perhaps one of the reasons snakes feature in the Garden of Paradise as the creature who gave us the vision of God, in addition to serving as the primordial and eternal enemy of mankind. This is perhaps one of the reasons why Mary, the eternal archetypical mother, Eve perfected, is so commonly shown in medieval and Renaissance iconography as holding the Christ child in the air as far away from possible from the predatory reptile, which she has firmly pinned under her foot. And there's more. It's fruit that the snake offers. And fruit is also associated with a transformation of vision, in that our ability to see color is an adaptation that allows us to rapidly detect the ripe and therefore edible bounty of trees. So, yeah, this is an interesting thing that I want to bring up in the Jordan Peterson Biblical series, is that, you know, our ancestors co-evolved with snakes. And that our ability to see snakes, you know, because snakes use IR visions based on heat. So they can see us no matter what camouflage we use, but they use camouflage. And so we had to see colors as well as movement in order to be able to detect the snake. And that it is that co-evolution of our ancestors with snakes that gave us the vision that we have, so that we can see that snake and we can see that little bastard moving, in the undergrowth and in the trees and everything else. And it is fruit, the vitamins and minerals that we get from fruit, like vitamin A, vitamin C, things like that really, really help vision. And that these three concepts, the vision, the snake, the fruit, are all intertwined evolutionary, with ourselves and with the stories we tell about ourselves. So I'm going to try and hunt down those videos so that we can watch them with the biblical studies. So our primordial parents hearkened to the snake. They ate the fruit. Their eyes opened. They both awoke. You might think, as Eve did initially, that this world would be a good thing. Sometimes, however, half a gift is worse than none. Adam and Eve wake up all right, but only enough to discover some terrible things. First, they notice that they're naked. The naked ape. My son first figured out that he was naked well before he was 3. He wanted to dress himself. He kept the washroom door firmly shut. He didn't appear in public without his clothes. I couldn't for the life of me see how this had anything to do with his upbringing. It was his own discovery, his own realization, and his own choice of reactions. It looked built in to me. What does this mean to know yourself naked, or potentially worse, to know yourself and your partner naked? All the manner of terrible things, expressed in the rather horrifying manner, for example, of the Renaissance painter Hans Baldwin, whose painting inspired the illustrations that begin this chapter. Naked means vulnerable and easily damaged. Naked means subject to judgment for beauty and health. Naked means unprotected and unarmed in the jungle of nature of man. And this is why Adam and Eve became ashamed immediately after their eyes were opened. They could see, and what they first saw was themselves. They could see their faults stood out. Their vulnerability was on display. Unlike other animals whose delicate abdomens are protected by the armor-like expanse of their backs, they were upright creatures with the most vulnerable parts of their body presented to the world. And worse was yet to come. Adam and Eve made themselves loincloths, in the International Standard Version, aprons, in the King James Version, right away to cover up their fragile bodies and protect their egos. Then they promptly skittered off and hid. In their vulnerability, now fully realized, they felt unworthy to stand before God. If you can't identify with that sentiment, you're just not thinking. Beauty shames the ugly. Strength shames the weak. Death shames the living. And the ideal shames us all. Thus we fear it, resent it, even hate it. And of course, that's the theme next examined in Genesis, in the study of Cain and Abel. What are we to do about that? Abandon all ideas of beauty, health, brilliance, and strength? That's not a good solution. That would merely ensure that we would feel ashamed all the time, and that we would even more justly deserve it. I don't want women who can stun by their mere presence to disappear just so that others can feel unself-conscious. I don't want intellects such as John von Neumann to vanish just because of my barely grade 12 grasp of mathematics. By the time he was 19, he had redefined numbers. Numbers! Thank God for John von Neumann. Thank God for Grace Kelly and Anita Ekberg and Monica Bellucci. I'm proud to feel unworthy in the presence of people like that. It's the price we all pay for aim, achievement, and ambition. But it's also no wonder that Adam and Eve covered themselves up. The next part of the story is downright farcical, in my opinion, although it's also tragic and terrible. That evening, when Eden cools down, God goes out for his evening stroll, but Adam is absent. This puzzles God, who is accustomed to walking with him. Adam, calls out God, apparently forgetting that he can see through bushes. Where are you? Adam immediately reveals himself, but badly. First as a neurotic, then as a rat fink. The creator of all the universe calls, and Adam replies, I hear you, God, but I was naked and hid. What does this mean? It means that people, unsettled by their vulnerability, eternally fear to tell the truth, to mediate between chaos and order, and to manifest their destiny. In other words, they are afraid to walk with God. That's not particularly admirable, perhaps, but it is certainly understandable. God is a judgmental father. His standards are high. He's hard to please. God said, who told you that you were naked? Did you eat something that you weren't supposed to? And Adam, in his wretchedness, points to Eve, his love, his partner, his soulmate, and snitches on her. And then he blames God. He says, the woman who you gave me, she gave it to me, and then I ate it. How pathetic and how accurate. The first woman made the first man self-conscious and resentful. Then the first man blamed the woman, and the first man blamed God. This is exactly how every spurned male feels to this day. First, he feels small in front of the potential object of his love after she denigrates his reproductive suitability. Then he curses God for making her so bitchy, himself so useless, as if he has any sense, and being so deeply flawed. Then he turns on thoughts of revenge, how thoroughly contemptible, and how utterly understandable. At least the woman had the serpent to blame, and it later turns out that the snake is Satan himself, unlikely as that seems. Thus, we can understand and sympathize with Eve's error. She was deceived by the beast, but Adam, no one forced his words from his mouth. Unfortunately, the worst isn't over for man or beast. First, God curses the serpent, telling them that he will now have to slither around legless, forever in peril of being stomped on by angry humans. Second, he tells the woman that she will now bring forth children in sorrow and desire, an unworthy, sometimes resentful man who will, in consequence, lord her biological fate over her permanently. What might this mean? It could just mean that God is a patriarchal tyrant, as politically motivated interpretations of the ancient story insist. I think that it's merely descriptive, merely. And here's why. As human beings evolved, the brains that eventually gave rise to self-consciousness expanded tremendously. This produced an evolutionary arms race between fetal head and female pelvis. The female graciously widened her hips almost to the point where running would be no longer possible. The baby, for his part, allowed himself to be born more than a year early compared to other mammals of his size, and evolved semi-collapsible head. This was and is a painful adjustment for both. The essentially fetal baby is almost completely dependent on his mother for everything during the first year. The programmability of his massive brain means that he must be trained until he is 18 or 30 before being pushed out of the nest. This is to say nothing of the woman's consequential pain in childbirth and high risk of death for mother and infant alike. This all means that women pay a high price for pregnancy and child rearing, particularly in the early stages, and that one of the inevitable consequences is increased dependence upon the sometimes unreliable and always problematic good graces of men. Oh my gosh, that page just said way too much. So I'm going through red and yellow kill a fella. Red and black, you're okay, Jack. Oh, that's funny. Oh, it looks brown to you. Oh, I'm gonna have to fix that. That's my lighting above. So yeah, this is a nice blue couch. But yeah, I mean, how much power is in that? You talk about deer, you talk about any other mammal that's on this earth, and within a year or two, and they are as fully capable adults 18 to 30 years before human beings are developed enough to be kicked out of the nest. That's insane. How long does it take before a deer is able to walk around and be on their own? How long do they nurse? Elephants, one of the largest creatures, whales even, they only take a couple of years before, if their mother is killed off, they'll still be fine. Yeah, humans? No, we take so long to develop. And, if it's a deadbeat that knocks you up, woe be unto you and your child. So, oh my gosh. The Bible is absolutely right in how much pain is inflicted on all of us. It's not a matter of man versus woman or anything like that. It's a matter of our own nature that has been inflicted upon us. That 18 years, you gotta pay for that child that you created. And you better find out that it's yours, because otherwise, what sort of situation are you in after that? And the woman, you've got to nurse that child for at least a year. If you're in an environment that's more of a hunter-gatherer environment, you're talking about 2, 3, 4 years that child is nursing at your breast, just stealing the calcium out of your bones. It's absolutely crazy how difficult childbirth is on us as a species, male and female both. Because during that time that the female is vulnerable, she's got to rely on the man. That means that she's got to subjugate herself to the man, keep the man happy, because if he leaves you, you're screwed. So you better keep him happy. But at the same time, he's providing for all of you, not just himself. It's not like he's got any freedom in the whole, equation. It's just, whoo, we got a hell of a thing we're dealing with here in being human. Just in being human. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling. So, after God tells Eve what is going to happen, now that she has awakened, he turns to Adam, who, along with his male descendants, doesn't get off any easier. God says something akin to this: man, because you've attended to the woman, your eyes have been opened, your godlike vision granted to you by snake, fruit, and lover allows you to see far, even into the future. But those who see into the future can also eternally see trouble coming, and you must then prepare for all contingencies and possibilities. To do that, you will have to eternally sacrifice the present for the future. You must put aside pleasure for security. In short, You will have to work, and it's going to be difficult. I hope you're fond of thorns and thistles because you're going to grow a lot of them. And then God banishes the first man and the first woman from paradise out of infancy into the unconscious animal world, into horrors of history itself. And then he puts cherubim and a flaming sword at the gate of Eden just to stop them from eating the fruit of the tree of life. That in particular appears rather mean-spirited. Why not just make the poor humans immortal right away, particularly if your plan for the ultimate future anyway, as the story goes? But who would dare to question God? Perhaps heaven is something you must build, and immortality something you must earn. And so we must return to our original query. Why would someone buy prescription medication for his dog and then so carefully administer it when he would not do the same for himself? Now you have the answer, derived from one of the foundational texts of mankind. Why should anyone take care of anything as naked, ugly, shameful, frightened, worthless, cowardly, resentful, and defensive and accusatory as the descendants of Adam, even if that being is himself? And I do not mean to exclude women from this phrasing. All the reason we have discussed so far for taking a dim view of humanity are applicable to others as much as to the self. They're generalizations about human nature, nothing more specific. But you know so much more about yourself. You're bad enough as others know you, but only you know the full range of your secret transgressions, insufficiencies, and inadequacies. No one is more familiar than you with all the ways your mind and body are flawed. No one has more reason to hold you in contempt, to see you as pathetic. And by withholding something that might do you good, you can punish yourself for all your failings. A dog, harmless, innocent, unselfconscious dog, is clearly more deserving. But you are not yet convinced. Let us consider another vital issue: order, chaos, life, death, sin, vision, work, and suffering. That is not enough for the authors of Genesis, nor for humanity itself. The story continues in all its catastrophic and tragedy. The people involved, that's us, must contend with yet another painful awakening. We are next fated to contemplate mortality itself. That's rough, man. That's rough. We're on page 53 on good and evil. When their eyes opened, Adam and Eve realized more than just their nakedness and their necessity for toil. They also come to know good and evil, the serpent says, referring to their fruit. For God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. What could that possibly mean? All right, I think I'm going to pause it there. Just because, that's, this whole chapter is treat yourself as though you are taking care of someone who you love. It is so easy to consider ourselves contemptuous. I know everything that I do wrong. Why? Because I'm the one who did the wrong. I know all the reasons why I fall short. Why? Because I'm the one who didn't rise to the challenge. I I know all the reasons why I am unworthy, because I know of all the excuses that I make to not live up to my responsibilities of this, that, and the other. You know, not cleaning the house as I should, not cleaning myself as I should, not doing the laundry, not doing the dishes, whatever. You know, I know that I should do these things. And I also know that I make a conscious choice to not do these things. Why? Because I don't feel up to it in that moment, or I don't, I just don't want to. I'm going to stomp my feet like a little kid and say, I don't want to. And I know that I should. That's the good and evil. I know what the good thing is, and I choose to do wrong anyway. And that is why I can find myself so contemptible. Whereas the dogs sleeping there, they're just dogs. They're acting as their nature tells them to. They bark at other dogs that are outside. They sleep when they're tired. They eat when they're hungry and whine for treats when they look in their food bowl and it's not exactly what they want. I can forgive my dogs. Maybe because I can't hear what they say. Maybe because I can't hear the contemptual language that they have for me. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's it alone. But I am all too aware of my own faults, my own shortcomings, my own everything. My own choosing of not doing good when I know I should be doing good. And that's why I don't take as good a care of myself as I should. So, very fittingly, sorry I am late. I was asleep, Lawrence says. And I even find it easier to forgive other people. Lawrence, if you needed to sleep, you needed to sleep. And I'm not going to hold that against you. But if I had fallen asleep and I had been late, oh my gosh, there aren't enough blunt objects in the world for me to beat myself up with for being late. I'm so much harder on myself than I am on other people around me. And so in that way, it does become more difficult for me to take care of myself as I should. And it's almost as if I have to detach from myself in order to take proper care of myself. It's almost like I have to separate myself out into two different beings. The ideal me that says, yeah, you screwed up, whatever. I forgive myself. I'm still going to take care of myself because even though I know in my heart I don't deserve it, I'm still going to forgive myself and do it because not doing it creates even a worse path. Different Gnome says, you remember that thing I said last week about knowing something from reading ahead? That was the thing about caring for dogs more than ourselves. Right. Exactly. Shaman says, suffering it is the first noble truth. Very much so. That's something that cannot be denied in human existence is suffering. No matter what culture we're in, we all understand suffering. So, Taylor says, society pushing out religion has been trying to blend the line of good and evil so it's not as easily noticeable to detect the evil. That's an interesting observation. Okay, go away. That's a very interesting observation. So, yeah, I don't know. It's almost, does it seem to you like it's shame? Like in order to get rid of the shame, we get rid of the source of judgment? Go away. I already told you once before, go away. Oh, my phone, sorry. Yeah, I think that people don't realize that it's not the religion judging them, but it is themselves judging them, and they see the religion as the source, but it's just that religion identifies it and puts a name to it and everything else. I don't think religion itself is the source. I think that we ourselves are the source. And we think that getting rid of this proxy that exists, seemingly outside of us, that we can then get rid of that shame, but we can't. If there's anything that Jordan Peterson and the Bible teaches us, is that this shame is inherent to ourselves because we do have the vision to see. So, yeah. Shell says, me too, Pam. Yeah, exactly. We're all, like I see my faults so much more than I see any faults in you guys. You, as far as I'm concerned, you're all better than me. You're all better than me. And that's because, I'm so close to me that I know all of my faults. And I just see all of your all's goodness. And I know that you're probably struggling with, the same sort of self-consciousness that I am, that I can't see. I can't see your self-consciousness. I can see my self-consciousness clearly, And Shelman reminds us, rule number 2, treat yourself as like you're someone responsible for helping. Why won't you take your damn pills? Page 31. Exactly. And it comes down to, I won't take my damn pills because 1, I don't feel like I'm deserving of the help. 2, I'm too self-aware of why I need to be punished for my own shortcomings. And 3, that it's just hard. That it's just hard to think that I deserve the help. It's hard to feel like I deserve goodness because of everything that I'm so self-conscious about in myself, where I know I fall short. And with my own pills, I know that it took me months to just detach from it emotionally and go, okay, you wake up in the morning, you take these 3 pills. Don't even think about it. Just take it. Just be done with it. And then you don't have to think about it afterwards. You don't have to think about whether or not you're deserving or any of that other crap that comes along with it. All that eyes open ego stuff can come later, but just do what you have to do. Do what you have to do. So Samantha B says, that's one I'm still struggling with. I think we all are. I think everybody struggles with that. The statistics out of the FDA and the DEA say it completely. It doesn't matter if it's heart medication or whether or not you're trying to kick heroin. You are going to relapse an average of 7 times. An average of 7 times before you get it right. That just says that this is something fundamental to human nature, period. It doesn't matter whether or not, you're trying to get sober from heroin or whether you're trying to keep your heart in working order. Doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. Taking care of ourselves is hard, is really hard. And we just have to figure out how to do it. Just let go of deserving and undeserving, of I'm not worthy or any of that other crap. Just let it all go and get it done. Just get it done. There was this great vision I had. I woke up, I was staying with my mother, and I had this horrible, horrible migraine, and I had a pain pill, which I could take for the pain. I was given permission to take this pain pill, but I thought that I was being more noble by not taking the pain pill. And I saw this vision of myself and me as a little child walking up to me. This is going to get confusing with pronouns, but so older me and younger me came up to current me. And older me looked at current me and said, would you make yourself as a child suffer with the amount of pain that you're in right now? And I said, oh God, no, she's just a child. Why would I inflict that much pain upon her? And older me said, so why are you doing it to yourself? And I immediately just went, oh my gosh, I get it. And I rushed out of the shower and I immediately took the pain pill. Because, suffering, there's no reason to punishing ourselves through suffering is not the way. It is not the way to improvement. We need to improve first, and then we can worry about the punishment later for whatever. But first, we've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to do what we know in our hearts. I mean, it's not noble to feel pain. There's no nobility in feeling pain. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself and worry about all that other crap later. So if there's anything that I can leave you guys with, it's thank you for putting up with everything this evening that has been crazy and just out of the ordinary. Thank you for your forgiveness of my foibles and all my shortcomings and everything like that. Thank you for being here with me tonight. And forgive yourselves in the same way. In the same way that you've already forgiven me. Forgive yourself. Do what you need to do to make your life and yourself better. Don't worry about deserving it. Just take care of yourself and be well. So, Shell says, love you, Pam. Great show. Love you guys too. So I'm so glad that you were here tonight. And I'll be very glad to see you here tomorrow night for the rest of the Bible study. So forgive you as I have already forgiven you, because you all are so precious to me. And I'm so glad you're here. You are my Pam fam. And I love you so very much.